In today's video, we are going to explore best Haruki Murakami quotes about thoughts, destiny, self-confidence, and people. Let's get started. It's all a question of imagination. Our responsibility begins with the power to imagine. Every one of us is losing something precious to us, lost opportunities, lost possibilities, feelings we can never get back again. That's part of what it means to be alive. But inside our heads, at least that's where I imagine it, there's a little room where we store those memories. A room like the stacks in this library. And to understand the workings of our own heart, we have to keep on making new reference cards. We have to dust things off every once in a while, let in fresh air, change the water in the flower vases. In other words, you'll live forever in your own private library. Sometimes fate is like a small sandstorm that keeps changing directions. You change direction, but the sandstorm chases you. You turn again, but the storm adjusts. Over and over you play this out, like some ominous dance with death just before dawn. Why? Because this storm isn't something that blew in from far away, something that has nothing to do with you. This storm is you. Something inside of you. So all you can do is give in to it, step right inside the storm, closing your eyes and plugging up your ears so the sand doesn't get in, and walk through it, step by step. There's no sun there, no moon, no direction, no sense of time. Just fine white sand swirling up into the sky like pulverized bones. That's the kind of sandstorm you need to imagine. In everything there's a proper order. You can't look too far ahead. Do that and you'll lose sight of what you're doing and stumble. I'm not saying you should focus solely on details right in front of you, mind you. You've got to look ahead a bit or else you'll bump into something. You've got to follow the proper order and at the same time keep an eye out for what's ahead. That's critical, no matter what you're doing. Memories and thoughts age, just as people do. But certain thoughts can never age, and certain memories can never fade. Well, think of what I'm doing to you right now. For me, I'm the self, and you're the object. For you, of course, it's the exact opposite, you're the self to you and I'm the object. And by exchanging self and object, we can project ourselves onto the other and gain self-consciousness. Volitionally. You seek a voice, but what do you get? Silence. You look for silence, but guess what? All you hear over and over and over is the voice of this omen. And sometimes this prophetic voice pushes a secret switch hidden deep inside your brain. As individuals, each of us is extremely isolated, while at the same time we are linked by a prototypical memory. The concept of death was beyond his powers of imagination. And pain was something he wasn't aware of until he actually felt it. You're afraid of imagination. And even more afraid of dreams. Afraid of the responsibility that begins in dreams. But you can't suppress dreams. When you say you believe, you allow the possibility of disappointment. And from disappointment or betrayal, there may come despair. Such is the way of the mind. Pointless thinking is worse than no thinking at all. A person's destiny is something you look back at afterwards, not something to be known in advance. All of us are imperfect human beings living in an imperfect world. But things in the past are like a plate that's shattered to pieces. You can never put it back together like it was, right? Each and every one of us is a being of limited duration. All of us eventually go down to defeat. But as Ernest Hemingway saw so clearly, the ultimate value of our lives is decided not by how we win but by how we lose. Each person feels pain in his own way, each has his own scars. Having an object that symbolizes freedom might make a person happier than actually getting the freedom it represents. I'll tell you one thing though. You're going to get a lot tougher if you want to make it. In a world of time, nothing can go back to the way it was. In dreams begin responsibilities. It's all pointless assuming you try to find a point to it. We're coming from somewhere, heading somewhere else. That's all you need to know, right? Money isn't like mushrooms in a forest, it doesn't just pop up on its own, you know. My point is, in this whole wide world, the only person you can depend on is you. Necessity is an independent concept. Its function lies entirely in the role it plays. What doesn't play a role shouldn't exist. What necessity requires does need to exist. That's what you call dramaturgy. No matter how far you travel, you can never get away from yourself. It's like your shadow. It follows you everywhere. No matter how far you travel, you can never get away from yourself. Nobody can predict where talent's headed. Sometimes it simply vanishes. Other times, it sinks down under the earth like an underground stream and flows off who knows where. The most important thing we learn at school is the fact that the most important things can't be learned at school. There's nothing wrong with not looking like something. It just means you don't fit the stereotype yet. There's a difference between loss and lack. I suppose it's like, well, imagine a train streaming down a track. The freight's disappeared from one of the cars. A car that's empty inside, that's loss. When the whole car itself has vanished, that's lack. To understand something and to put that something into a form you can see with your own eyes are two completely different things. Until things happen, they haven't happened. And often things aren't what they seem. What you see with your eyes is not necessarily real. My enemy is, among other things, the me inside me. Whatever it is you're seeking won't come in the form you're expecting. You're seeking something, but at the same time, you are running away for all you're worth. You're still very much yourself and nobody else. And you're forging ahead as yourself. So relax. No matter who or what you're dealing with, people build up meaning between themselves and the things around them. Being bright has nothing to do with it. People are drawn deeper into tragedy not by their defects but by their virtues. Despite your best efforts, people are going to be hurt when it's time for them to be hurt. No matter what they wish for, no matter how far they go, people can never be anything but themselves. That's all. What happens when people open their hearts? They get better. Callous people who throw a lot of empty words at you, trying to force you to do what you don't want to. Narrow minds devoid of imagination. Intolerance, theories cut off from reality, empty terminology, usurped ideals, inflexible systems. The longer people live, the more they learn to distinguish what's important from what's not. Only people who've been discriminated against can really know how much it hurts. While they're still alive, people can become ghosts. Lift the burden from your shoulders and live, not caught up in someone else's schemes, but as you. That's what you want. Everybody's born with some different thing at the core of their existence. And that thing, whatever it is, becomes like a heat source that runs each person from the inside. I have one too, of course. Like everybody else. But sometimes it gets out of hand. It swells or shrinks inside me, and it shakes me up. What I'd really like to do is find a way to communicate that feeling to another person. But I can't seem to do it. They just don't get it. Of course, the problem could be that I'm not explaining it very well, but I think it's because they're not listening very well. They pretend to be listening, but they're not, really. So I get worked up sometimes, and I do some crazy things. Adults constantly raise the bar on smart children, precisely because they're able to handle it. The children get overwhelmed by the tasks in front of them and gradually lose the sort of openness and sense of accomplishment they innately have. When they're treated like that, children start to crawl inside a shell and keep everything inside. It takes a lot of time and effort to get them to open up again. Kids' hearts are malleable, but once they gel it's hard to get them back the way they are. But listening to the D major, I can feel the limits of what humans are capable of, that a certain type of perfection can only be realized through a limitless accumulation of the imperfect. Hatred is like a two-edged sword. When you cut the other person, you cut yourself. No matter how honestly you open up to someone, there are still things you cannot reveal. Please let us know your favorite quotes from these best Haruki Murakami quotes about thoughts, destiny, self-confidence, and people in the comments section. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.